About a month or so ago, Freewell released their lens set for the Osmo Pocket 3, where you get an anamorphic lens, a wide-angle lens, stackable ND filters, and a new macro lens. I say new because the Pocket 2 didn't have the macro lens, it just had the anamorphic lens and the wide-angle lens. So I was really curious to see how the macro lens was going to be with the Pocket 3 because I love macro and I love getting close-up shots. So I'm going to try out all the lenses and the filters, and I want to see what the quality is like and just how they perform with the Osmo Pocket 3. But to use one of the lenses, it's a little bit strange, so I'll show you why in a little bit. But let's start with the anamorphic lens because I went out a few weeks ago to try everything whilst I was filming another video. So I remember having the anamorphic lens with the Pocket 2, and I remember sometimes the flares just looked a little bit too much, so I'm really keen to see what the flares look like with the Pocket 3 and the anamorphic lens. The anamorphic lens is also just a 1.1D squeeze, so it's not a typical de-squeeze factor that you get for an anamorphic lens, but let's see what it looks like. I also thought I'd try out the anamorphic lens in D-Log-M and the normal colour profile, just so that I could see if there was any difference in the footage when using both of the colour profiles or either of the colour profiles. I also thought I'd just get a shot in normal colour profile because the last one was in D-Log-M, so I just want to see if it makes a difference to like the colours or anything, if there's any colour cast, and just in the normal colour profile because you don't necessarily have to shoot in D-Log-M. So that was just, oh, there I am, back in thing. But colour aside, there was a point at which I wasn't in focus when I used the anamorphic lens, and then it seemed to just snap back into focus, but it was fine. So I just took the anamorphic lens off because I want to see if there's any difference in the colour of the footage, because this is a blue streak filter. So if you had a gold streak, then it might add a bit of a warmer tone to it, whereas if you've got a blue streak filter, then it will, or lens, anamorphic lens, then it will add a blue colour, more of a cool tone to the footage. So yeah, I just wanted to see if there was any difference between, or how much of a difference there would be between having it on and not having it on. So I couldn't really see any obvious colour difference. Maybe it's more apparent in low light, maybe it's something that I'll have to try out. But in terms of the quality, the sharpness and the clarity, there wasn't really a difference that I could see between using the anamorphic lens and then not using the anamorphic lens. So the quality is really good, and I actually do rate Freewell quite highly because I think that the quality of their products is very good. There never really seems to be much interference with the overall quality of the image when you use a Freewell filter. So yeah. So earlier when I mentioned that one of the lenses works in a bit of a unique way, that is the wide-angle lens. And I'm not sure why it was done like this, because if you look back to the Pocket 2 wide-angle lens by Freewell, it was just that lens that you needed for the wide-angle, but it's different with the Osmo Pocket 3. So if you want to use the wide-angle lens, you actually need to use the macro lens, because if you put the wide-angle lens on, this is what you get. So the wide-angle lens has to be used with the macro lens. I'm not quite sure why, but this is now with both the macro and the wide-angle lens on together. So also, this is wide-angle, and then this is without the wide-angle lens on. It doesn't look like there's that much distortion, actually. I also wanted to see if there was much difference from the wide-angle lens that you get from DJI versus the Freewell wide-angle lens, and just basically in terms of image quality and distortion. If I get my Pocket 3, the one that came with the Pocket 3, the DJI wide-angle lens, let me just try that. So this is the wide-angle lens, the Freewell wide-angle lens. Just take that one off. And then this is the wide-angle lens that came with it. Is there much difference? So the DJI wide-angle lens, and then the Freewell wide-angle lens. Any difference? It's really hard to tell on the little screen, so I'll see later. At this point, you might be thinking there's no real reason to go for the Freewell wide-angle lens over the DJI wide-angle lens because of the quality. They're both pretty much matched. But the Freewell wide angle, I feel like I've said wide angle lens so many times. The Freewell one has a very big benefit that the DJI one doesn't have, and that is being able to stack ND filters on top of it. And you can also stack the ND filters on top of the anamorphic lens and the macro lens as well. Okay, so what about the macro lens? How is it actually? Because this was the one that I was the most excited about, because I love macro, I love getting close-ups. So I wanted to see how it performed with the Pocket 3. And just like with any other macro lens, you do have to be incredibly still in order to not introduce any jitters or any shaking to the footage, regardless of whether the camera is on a gimbal or not. So in this case, using it handheld is a little bit tricky. And if anything, you'd be best off having the Pocket 3 on a tripod if that's possible. Otherwise, you could just use the macro lens to get macro photos. So if you do want to check out the lenses and the filters in this kit, then I've dropped a link in the description. And if you're kind of looking for a way to get more creative shots really easily with your Osmo Pocket 3, then I suggest watching either of these two videos because they might be very helpful.